Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Balanced Fit and Free podcast. I got to tell you, today was not planned. I had a completely different topic planned for you, so I'll do that next week. But I decided to skip it because something else came up that I wanted to talk about. As you probably know, last week was the Super Bowl. Well, maybe 2 weeks now at the time of hearing this new episode, but a couple weeks ago, whatever, the Super Bowl came on. And we all know that the Super Bowl is super famous for its commercials and for the halftime show. Now, I know if you're a football fan, you're like, none of that matters. It's all about the football. And I get it. I totally get it. But there's a lot of people that enjoy the Super Bowl simply, well, for the treats and the snacks and the appetizers and the parties and the beer and the wine and the whatever, but also because of those commercials. They're usually, kind of unique. They're funny, although there wasn't that many that I love this year. But the halftime show is a big, big hit. And this year, I have to admit to you that when I got around to figuring out who the halftime artist was going to be, because I've been super busy, I have not been thinking about the Super Bowl, didn't care. I did find out that it was Kendrick Lamar. And although I know that name, I was a tad bit disappointed because, of course, I wanted it to be somebody I totally love, although I couldn't tell you who I would choose. So, with that in mind, I said to my husband, "Oh, that's kind of a bummer. I don't really know that music, but our kids will probably like it." And then I didn't think another thing about it. So, the night of the Super Bowl, Brian and I, we had our annual nachos. We not create, we cook. I guess we create them too, but we cook some taco meat and we make our own the healthy version of nachos, which I really, really love. So to be honest with you, I was more excited about dinner than I was about the game. But anyway, we got our stuff ready. We're watching the game. Actually, Brian was watching the game and I was reading a book in front of the TV, like so I could enjoy time with Brian, but I was reading my book and suddenly it was time for halftime. So even though I wasn't fully paying attention to what people are saying the message was. And had I been paying closer attention to it, I would have caught the message sooner. And now I can, in hindsight, can totally see it. Um, so even though I wasn't paying full attention to it, I did notice that the dancers were amazing. And I appreciated the fact that it appeared to be that Kendrick was actually, rapping and not lip syncing. At least it looked like it to me that it was like the real deal. So I really appreciated that. And so even though, you know, he's not my favorite artist, right? I mean, it's fine. I didn't really understand the songs or know them, recognize them. I still, appreciated the artistry of the whole show. And a funny thing happened in the middle of it. A female singer came on and sang. And I'm really embarrassed to say that I would tell you she's one of my favorite singers, but when she was on the stage, I had no idea who she was. So that really shows how much of a fan I am of SZA. So SZA was introduced to me by my daughter a while back, and actually I listened to her songs. I've played a couple of her songs in my cycle class, and I really like her, but I guess I didn't really understand that that was her. And anyway, so anyway, during the halftime show, like I said, I was like halfway. I mean, I was kind of watching it, but not fully and not a big deal. I happened to have Facebook pulled up. And as I was kind of glancing between Facebook, scrolling and watching the TV, I was noticing like suddenly all these people were like posting, "This show sucks. Why would they pick him? This is so dumb. This is terrible. This sucks." The word suck came up a lot, an awful lot, actually. And people were like, "This is ridiculous. What a waste of time. Who's in charge of this anyway? Why would they pick something so terrible?" And, just negative comment after negative comment. Now, there were a few thrown in there that were like, "I'm enjoying this. Great." But I would say the majority were negative. And also keeping in mind that this is who I see on my feed. And some of these people I don't know. And it's not personal to anyone if they thought it was terrible, but something about this just annoyed me so bad. And I will tell you, normally, I wouldn't even care. I don't really spend that much emotional time in my Facebook. I will scroll through, and if someone is saying something that I don't think is, worth reading, I just scroll on past. But for some strange reason, I got so defensive for this guy performing that I don't know a darn thing about. Since then, I have learned more about him, such as a Pulitzer Prize winner, Grammy Award winner, 4.0 student in high school, like smart guy. Like he is a great artist. There's so many things. Just because I don't know him doesn't mean he's not great. Anyway, I don't know him. I don't know anything about him. And yet I had this almost like motherly, defensive feeling for him. Like he's just this young guy doing what he loves and he's doing it really well. And people are slamming him, and it made me angry. It really, really did. And so I just want to point out that the word suck, I said this earlier, like I couldn't believe how many people were like, this sucks. That was like such a common word that was used among all of these posts. And I have to say that when I was little, I don't know, I was probably like 4 or 5. And I remember I had a balloon and it popped. And I said, well, that sucks. And my mom slapped my face and said, you don't say that word. It makes you sound like a bad girl. And I remember that so well. I mean, it really, really made an impression on me. And I gotta say, it's taken me a really, really long time, as an adult to even want to use that word. In fact, I even kind of cringe a little bit inside when I say the word because I do agree with my mom. When you say something sucks, it doesn't sound very polite, although that's not the point of saying it, right? But it doesn't sound very ladylike or very nice, you know? And so, anyway, moving forward, that's all beside the point. I decided on Monday morning, I had an appointment somewhere, and on the way there, I was thinking, and for some reason, I just couldn't shake this feeling of being frustrated about the Super Bowl performer. And so I decided I was going to make a post about it. And before I posted it, I realized that me posting something about the Super Bowl halftime show was just kind of egging people on. But at the same time, I had this like sense of obligation for, like I said, I don't know why. I just had this like intuition, this like message, this little something coming to me that I just couldn't shake. So I decided to make the post. And basically, all I said, I created a little picture that said, did it suck or did you just not like it? There's a big difference. Okay. And I think that just because you think something, you don't like something or you think it's terrible, that's just your opinion. That doesn't mean that it's true. And I would say that 90% of the people who, post like made a comment on my post, which I was actually shocked at how many people. I mean, I think I post way more important things than I get crickets, but then I post something about the halftime Super Bowl and it's like 300 comments or something. I'm like, well, shoot, you guys are more interested in that than what I love to talk about. Anyway, about 90-ish percent, I'm just making up that number, but a lot of people agreed with me. And a lot of these people said they didn't actually love the show, but and we all agree that it's probably because of our age range and just not being familiar with the artist and the songs. But they agreed that it didn't mean it sucked, it just wasn't their style, right? And that's kind of course, when you post something, you want people to agree with you. And so I was really happy with that. But I knew that there would be some naysayers in there. And I would say about 10% basically told me I didn't know what I was talking about and that it indeed sucked and it was terrible and that, basically I was wrong. And so I'm proud of myself to say that not a single one of those bothered me because the whole point of my post was that we are entitled to our own opinion, sure. But why do we have to make a negative spin on everything? Why do we have to shout out that something sucks and it's terrible and make a public like statement about it? Although I do see the irony here that I am now talking about that and giving my opinion. But Anyway, so one person's opinion is always going to be different than another person's opinion. And this is just going to go on for the rest of our lives. Like, no matter what you say, there's always going to be somebody with the opposite opinion, and that is totally fine. And in fact, that's a wonderful thing because we need to have our own agency. We need to have our own opinion. We need to be able to think however we want to think. I just wanted to point out that I don't think that we always need to publicly post, like I said, our opinion about everything that comes around. So, anyway, that made me think a little bit more about why it bothered me so much. Like, I just couldn't figure out what my problem was. I'm like, why can't I just move on? Like, what is my deal? This is so not like me to not just go with the flow and like drop it. So, I think it's because, as you know, I've been doing a lot of inner healing work and working on my parts. And I'm working on my protector parts and my exiles and trying to learn all the pieces of myself. And I will say to you that if you don't understand what I'm talking about when I say protectors and exiles and parts work, then definitely go back and listen to some of my past episodes because then you'll totally understand it. But, I have parts of myself that I don't love. And then I have parts protecting those parts that I don't love. And then I have parts bullying those parts. And there's a lot going on psychologically, inside of myself and also inside of you. So, you know, there's something about like when you start to truly know yourself, when you really start to step into your true, authentic self, you're more able to handle situations with calmness, curiosity, and compassion. So there's so much going on in our country now, politically and in all kinds of ways. There's just a lot of turmoil happening. And if you think about it, there always is. There always is. There's always something happening that we're all up in arms over. There's always something. And it's going to continue doing this forever, right? How can it actually get better? There's so many people in the world that have no compassion. And the compassion that I'm talking about is they don't have compassion for themselves. And when you don't have compassion for yourself, how can you have compassion for others? So, I want to talk a little bit more the rest of this episode about how can we cultivate more curiosity and more compassion in our life and therefore in our world. So here's how I see it working. When you are confident and clear about who you are, it's much easier to remain calm in any situation. You're able to take a pause and assess and be curious about the situation at hand, right? Instead of instantly getting angry, instead of instantly being frustrated or overwhelmed. Okay. When you're truly acting from your best self, you can pause in the moment and look at all of the evidence around you. You can be curious then about why things are the way they are, okay, or why people are acting the way they're acting, or why somebody's being the way they're being. When we are curious and we can actually take this moment to be calm and look at all of the pieces, then we can be a little bit more compassionate towards the situation and or other people involved. So how do we actually cultivate, create more curiosity and compassion? Well, I believe it starts by understanding and loving yourself. If you already feel hatred and anger, shame, disappointment, whatever in yourself, if you have these negative, strong emotions about yourself, like I said earlier, it's very hard to feel open and compassionate to other people and see that they're just other people having the same reaction, the same feelings, the same emotions. We're just beings having a human experience. Every single human on this planet has these their own opinions, feelings, emotions, traumas, insecurities, burdens, right? So the first step is just being aware of how you feel about yourself. Okay, noticing Noticing how you feel about yourself. What do you really think of yourself? How do you treat yourself? How do you talk about yourself? How do you talk to yourself? Okay. So the first step to trying to create more of this compassion in the world is like knowing you. Yeah. Do you really even know you? Do you even understand you? Do you know why you do the things you do? Do you know why you have the opinions you have? Do you know why? Where does it come from? What is it? So that's the first step. Step two then is to figure out, like I was saying, why? Like, why? Step one, awareness. Step two, why? Why do you feel that way? Why do you think the way you think about yourself? Why do you have the voices inside of you saying things? Why? This is going to take a little digging. Okay. It's going to take some time to really like open up the heart, open up your system, and really dive in and figure out where your feelings about yourself come from. And I promise it's mostly from other outside sources, right? The conditioning that we go through. So, a lot of people are not honest with themselves. And a lot of people spend so much time shoving down and avoiding and numbing the way they really feel that all this does is create more pain, more anger, more resentfulness, and more confusion. And when you're confused and feeling shameful and angry with yourself, it's so much easier to take it out on the world around you. Step three, once you can figure out what is going on inside of you, then you can start to do the work to clear the path. Clearing the path means like working through the feelings that you have or the past traumas and experiences and learning how to be kind and compassionate to yourself. We need to learn how to bring about that trauma or those experiences or those things people have said to you, whatever. We need to be able to bring them up, work through them so that you can realize that was the past. Okay. Many people have a part of them that is actually stuck in the past. And that is the thing that could be holding them back from true joy, fulfillment, feeling calm in their body and mind, having confidence, having clarity, having connectedness to the world, and just being compassionate, like coming back to compassion. None of us can change the world by ourselves, but if we all start to take care of our own issues, then maybe we can start to see that everyone else also has their own trauma and experiences happening inside of them. This is where curiosity comes in. If you feel a certain way, you can bet that the person next to you at the grocery store also has their own experiences and feelings. The guy speeding down the street that you want to shake your fist at, right? He too has had trauma and experiences. We can't know what others have felt in their life. So then when we point out blame and throw out words like you suck, we are only creating more division in our world. So yes, I know. I know. I sound like a hippie. I just want peace and love and hugs and puppies. I do. Yes. I mean, why not? I do. I just want people to love each other. And I do want world peace. And, I do want all of that. So it's sad to me to watch people tear each other down for really no reason at all. Okay. So, like the Super Bowl, like people just like being so mean about this kid. I mean, he's a kid, this Kendrick Lamar. This dude's a kid and he's somebody's son. I don't know the situation there or not, but like I felt very motherly and like defensive for him because I don't want anyone talking about my kid that way. And imagine, and I'm sure he's like laughing all the way to the bank, someone would say, I'm sure. But it's still he even has feelings, and it takes a lot of guts to get out there in front of the entire country and perform something and to have a message behind it that was probably, I'm sure he was proud to do it, but it's scary. It's very scary. Okay. So anyway, the other thing that happened during the Super Bowl was some commercials with Tom Brady and Snoop Dogg. And at first, again, I wasn't really paying attention because I'm reading my book. But one of them, I know they were doing it, but I wasn't fully paying attention. And then one of them I just caught, Snoop Dogg said, um, I hate you because I think you hate me. I hate you because I think you hate me. And this just goes right into what I'm saying today. We have a lot of feelings and opinions, but we don't have a lot of curiosity or compassion to actually look into that statement more. Don't hate somebody just because you think they hate you, right? That just keeps a lot of problems just circling over and over and over. So, we make decisions and opinions based off what we think versus what we know. So many people do. We're like, well, I think blah, 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 so it must be true. It's not always. We also make opinions and choices based on what we have learned. Okay, so we carry what's called a legacy burden. A legacy burden is something passed down from your ancestors. So if your family had been discriminated against for any reason, maybe race, political status, financial, whatever financial class you're in, or whatever career, or maybe someone in your family, did something and went to jail. Like there's so many things that I don't know. I'm just making up stuff, but people experience discrimination and or opinions thrown at them, and sometimes this comes from like maybe your grandparents were discriminated against, or your parents, or someone above you, but it wasn't you personally, right? This is what's called a legacy burden. It's like you carry on the hurt and the pain from somebody above you, like older than you in your family or in your community or in your whatever. And so, in my opinion, this can be a really big problem because when we live outside of ourselves and take on other people's burdens, we just, like I said, continue the cycle. And that's why I love to help people find their true, authentic, real self. I like to say, when somebody's having an emotion or a thought or a feeling, I like to say, is it yours or is it theirs? Like when you, like the thing that Snoop Dogg said, he's like, I hate you because I think you hate me. Well, I know that was just an example, but why? Where is that hate coming from? Is it someone else's opinion that you're expressing, or is it your true opinion? Okay, so if you are someone who tunes into my podcast because you remember me mostly talking about fitness and nutrition and weight loss, you might be wondering why the heck I'm talking about burdens and trauma and political BS, right? Well, it's because there's only so much a diet plan and fitness plan can do for you. Those are super important and part of the puzzle, but to transform your life in a meaningful way, it's the other stuff that really matters. When you've shoved down personal and legacy burdens, past traumas, old beliefs, and continue to feel shame and guilt toward yourself, then it's likely that it's very difficult to stick to a nutrition plan. And it's probably very difficult to feel motivated to exercise and to feel excited about meal planning. Not to mention, you may have chronic pain, inflammation, and disease and not realize it's probably being exacerbated by your inner turmoil. So, I'm going to leave you today with a list of ways to become more curious and compassionate. Okay. Cultivating curiosity and compassion in our daily lives can transform the way we see ourselves, others, and the world. So, here are some ways, or 7 ways to become more curious. Number one, adopt a beginner's mindset. Approach life as if you're a student. Okay. Even when you're used to doing something, even if you know a subject really well, approach it as a beginner. Ask, what can I learn from this? Number two, just ask more questions. Instead of making assumptions, ask open-ended questions like, why is this happening? What else could be true? Things like that. Number three, challenge your own beliefs. Examine your like long-held opinions and be open to different perspectives. That's a huge one, right? Just be open. Maybe you aren't right. Maybe there is another way. What if the opposite were true? Number four, seek out new experiences. Try new foods, visit new places, learn a new skill, talk to people outside of your usual circle, listen to different music, aka Kendrick Lamar or something. Number five, read, watch, and listen widely. So explore different books, listen to documentaries, different podcasts, try different podcasts in different genres. You never know like what you might learn that's outside of your comfort zone. Number six, observe without judgment. Ooh, it's tough. We all do it. We don't even mean to. I have a big rule in my brain that as soon as I make a judgmental statement or thought, like I don't even have to say it out loud. If I say it in my head, I'm like, wait, stop. I tell myself to stop and to reword it because the last thing I want to be is judgmental because if you're judging others, you're judging yourself. Okay. So observe others and things without judgment. When something feels wrong or weird, just pause and ask, what's the deeper story? Okay. And then number seven, engage in creative play. Okay. To learn about curiosity, we need to try new things. So write, draw, dance, play the music without worrying about being good at it. Like just try some new things. That's another way to be curious. And even though like writing and drawing and stuff may have nothing to do with being curious about humans, it does at the same time because it shows you that everybody has talents and something might be hard to you that is a talent for somebody else. So just opening up your mind in all different manners is going to help cultivate this curiosity. Now let's talk about compassion. Number one, I have eight different ways that you can cultivate more compassion. Number one, practice self-compassion first. Treat yourself with kindness, especially when you make mistakes or fail. Don't be like, oh, I'm such an idiot. Like, how many times have you told yourself today, oh, that was dumb, or oh, I'm so stupid, or oh, I'm an idiot? That is another rule I have for myself. I've stopped doing that because I would always be like, oh, I'm so dumb. Oh, that was dumb. Oh, everything was about being dumb. And no wonder I always feel, for many years felt like I wasn't smart enough to do anything. It's because I kept telling myself I wasn't, you know? So, one thing about practicing self compassion is when you say something to yourself, ask yourself, would I say that to my friend or my child? And if you wouldn't, then you shouldn't say it to yourself either. Number two, listen deeply. When other people speak, actually focus fully on what they're saying instead of thinking about what your response will be. How many times have you done that? Where you're listening and you're like, oh, you have a good point. Like I'm really bad. I've gotten a lot better at this, but I used to be like, oh, I want to have a point. I have a point. I can't wait to like tell them what I think about that. That pretty soon I've missed half of what they said because I'm formulating what I'm going to say to them. So I have gotten much better about that. And maybe you need to too. Maybe you don't even realize you're doing it. Okay. And that's just it. That's the whole point of this. Be aware, awareness, awareness, awareness. Number three, step into someone else's shoes. Imagine what it might feel like to live in someone else's experience. I think that's a big one. That definitely will give you more compassion. Number four, release judgment. We kind of already said that for the curiosity, but even with compassion, release judgment. Instead of labeling behaviors as good or bad, consider what emotions or struggles may be behind them. Okay, number five, express gratitude. Recognize the good in yourself and others daily and say it out loud or write it down. Be grateful. The more gratitude you can show yourself and those around you, the more compassion you're going to have, more curiosity, more calmness, more confidence, and more you can be your true self. I really believe that. Number six, engage in small acts of kindness. Okay, I'm talking small, like smile back at somebody when like if you smile, if you're walking down the road and someone smiles at you, smile back, right? If you're driving through your neighborhood and you wave, you want the other person to wave back, right? So don't be the person that doesn't wave back. Like wave back, hold doors open. Tell somebody they look nice. Give a sincere compliment, things like that. Number seven, regulate your own emotions. Compassion is easier when we're not overwhelmed. So one way you can do that is practicing breath work. Just saying, I like breath work. Mindfulness, okay, being aware, being mindful, okay, or even moving. like moving your body, but regulate your emotions so that you can have that curious and compassionate mindset. And number 8, forgive. Woo. So forgiveness is a tough one because maybe you really don't want to forgive somebody, but the longer you hold on to resentment, the more you're just hurting yourself. The other person may not even care. So the sooner you can forgive, the more peace you're going to have and the more compassion you can have as well. Okay, so you guys, thank you so much for being here. I know this was just kind of a random um, episode today, but I really just wanted to talk a little bit more about compassion. And I think if we could just all be a little bit more of that, then we could be a much happier place. So, again, thank you for being here. I am really excited for just a few more episodes of this season. I have an amazing interview coming up with one of my favorite people. And if you haven't signed up for the Embracing Inner Wellness, the Authentic Awakening Masterclass and Workshop, I highly, highly recommend that you do. Okay, the in-person session is Saturday, March 1st, and the online session is Friday, March 14th. This is going to be the kickoff to my upcoming and newer Nourish program. I'm really excited to tell you more about that soon, but this training that I'm doing in the masterclass is going to be really important to understand if you're interested in checking out the new program coming out this spring. So, and last request, if you have just a moment, I would really appreciate you taking like just a minute or two to go rate and review the podcast or share it with a friend. You guys, thanks again, and I will catch you next week. Bye-bye.